He said, "There's no family vacation this year. Money's tight." I believed him. I even offered to help, offered more than my share. But when $32,000 in charges hit my account, and I found a 12-person yacht trip booked without me, I realized I wasn't just excluded. I was the bankroll. They called me family, but planned their dream getaway behind my back, using my money. This is the story of what happened when they tried to steal my summer and I took back control. I am Heather Wilson, 28, a financial analyst who always believed family comes first. Despite our dysfunctional moments, our annual vacations were sacred tradition. So, when my parents announced we were skipping vacation this year, saying money was tight, I felt disappointed but understood. I even offered financial help, but they insisted it was still too expensive. Something felt off about their quick dismissal, but I trusted them. I had no idea their betrayal would teach me the hardest lesson of my life. The Wilson family has always been complicated but close. My parents, Amanda and Brian Wilson, raised 4 of us in a middle-class neighborhood in Michigan. I am the second oldest, with my sister Lauren, 32, above me, and my younger siblings Ashley, 25, and Jason, 23, below. As we grew up, our family expanded to include Lauren's husband Derek, Ashley's husband Tom, and Jason's girlfriend Megan. Despite being a family of 8 adults now, we maintained our tradition of vacationing together every summer. Growing up, money was often tight in our household. My father worked as a high school teacher while my mother managed a small clothing boutique. They stretched every dollar, but they always made our annual vacation a priority. These trips were modest affairs, camping at state parks, road trips to visit relatives, or weekend stays at a budget motel near Lake Michigan. My fondest childhood memories revolve around these simple getaways where we'd roast marshmallows, swim until sunset, and play board games when it rained. A vacation is not a luxury. It is a necessity for a functioning family, my mother would always say. And she was right. Those trips provided us with uninterrupted time together away from the distractions of everyday life. Even during the recession when I was 13, when both my parents took second jobs, they somehow scraped together enough for 3 days at a cabin in the woods. I remember my father saying, "We might be broke, but we are not broken." As we siblings grew older and started working, our vacations gradually became more elaborate. Lauren suggested we all contribute to a family vacation fund. By the time I finished college, we were staying at proper resorts rather than motels. Last year, we rented a beachfront house in the Outer Banks for a week. We splurged on jet ski rentals, hired a chef for one special dinner, and even took a sunset cruise. It was the most expensive vacation we had ever taken, but seeing my parents finally enjoying luxury after years of sacrifice made every penny worth it. Unlike my siblings, I chose a career in finance and moved to Chicago. Working 60-hour weeks at an investment firm paid off, and by 28, I was earning more than my parents combined. This financial disparity created subtle tension within the family. I never flaunted my success, but I also never hesitated to pick up the check at dinner or upgrade our accommodations when planning trips. 2 years ago, I suggested we create a shared family expenses system. We set up a digital wallet app where we could all contribute to joint purchases, with the app tracking who paid what. The travel wallet became the central fund for our vacations, with each adult contributing based on their income. Being the highest earner, I typically covered about 40% of the total expenses. My credit card was linked to the wallet as the primary payment method, though everyone had their own cards attached as well. For this year's vacation, we had been casually discussing possibilities since January. My father had mentioned wanting to try something on the water, and we were exploring options along the Gulf Coast or possibly the Caribbean. Lauren had been researching rental properties, and Ashley was collecting restaurant recommendations. Everything seemed normal in our planning process, until that unexpected group message in March. "Family, we need to talk about vacation," my father wrote one Tuesday evening. Your mother and I have been looking at our finances and things are tighter than we thought this year. We think it might be best to skip the annual trip and focus on getting our finances in order. I immediately called him. Dad, if money is the issue, I can cover more than my usual share. You know that's not a problem. No, honey, he insisted. It's not just about the money. Your mother and I need to be more responsible. We're not getting any younger, and retirement is looming. Maybe next year. What struck me as odd was how quickly everyone else agreed. Usually, any change to our vacation plans triggered days of debate, alternative suggestions, and negotiation. But within an hour, all my siblings had chimed in with variations of, "That makes sense," and, "We understand." Nobody fought for our sacred tradition, which had survived far worse financial times. I tried once more in the group chat. What if we do something simple this year, like when we were kids? Camping or a lake cabin? My mother responded swiftly. That's sweet, Heather. But we've made our decision. Let's be responsible adults this year. And just like that, our vacation was canceled. I felt disappointed but respected what I thought was my parents' financial prudence. Little did I know that this was just the beginning of a betrayal that would shake the foundation of our family. 2 months had passed since the cancellation of our annual vacation. April melted into May, and the trees in Chicago bloomed with an optimism I didn't share. I kept myself busy at work, filling the 2 weeks I had previously taken off for our now-defunct trip with additional projects. It was better than dwelling on the disappointment. At least that's what I told myself. One evening, while half watching a cooking show and scrolling Instagram, a photo caught my eye. Lauren had posted a story, nothing major, just her packing a designer beach hat and some new luggage tags with the caption, "Summer Essentials." My stomach twisted. I tapped the image, and within seconds it disappeared. Curious, I texted her casually, "Nice tags. Big trip coming up?" "Oh, nothing big," she replied quickly. "Just heading to Cleveland to visit Derek's parents. Might stop at a spa on the way. You know, use some of that money we're saving from not doing the big vacation." It felt rehearsed. Lauren was the worst liar in our family, and she always got overly specific when covering something up. A week later, during our usual Sunday video call, my mom answered alone. My dad, she said, was next door watching a game. As we chatted, I noticed a large shopping bag in the background, from a store that specialized in resort wear. When I pointed it out, she awkwardly shifted the camera and changed the subject. "How's that international client going?" she asked. I had never mentioned an international client. Not once. Strange behaviors like these began piling up. Jason, our youngest, had always been a chronic oversharer on social media. But now his feed had gone eerily quiet. When he did post, there were no location tags. No group photos. Only vague captions like "grinding," "sun vibes," and "new swim gear," accompanied by stock-looking images. Ashley, my younger sister, was evasive too. When I suggested we do a mini-sisters weekend to make up for the cancelled vacation, she hesitated. "Work's swamped. I can't commit to anything in July," she claimed. Odd, considering she had bragged about her company's summer slowdown weeks earlier. Then came the biggest red flag, a shared digital shopping list. I had helped Ashley and Tom move last year and still had access to one of their collaborative notebooks. One afternoon, I got a notification. Someone had added a list titled "Cruise Prep." It had items like formal outfit for captain's dinner, waterproof phone case, and premium sunscreen. It vanished within minutes. But I had seen it. My heart raced. Were they planning a vacation without me? The tipping point came when my coworker, Caroline, casually mentioned, "Hey, I saw your brother at that fancy luggage store last weekend. I thought he was shopping for you. He said something about a surprise." A surprise. Everything clicked. The sudden vacation cancellation. The vague alibis. The evasiveness. The carefully curated social posts. My family was going on vacation. A real one. Not to Cleveland. Not to Aunt Carol's. But somewhere expensive. And I wasn't invited. Still, I wanted to believe I was wrong. That this was some misunderstanding. A surprise party. A secret family reunion I'd learn about later. So, I asked around. Not directly. Just casual questions. Any summer plans? I asked Jason. He said he was picking up extra shifts. Ashley said her office was drowning in clients. Lauren said she might do a long weekend. My parents repeated their refrain, being responsible adults this year. All lies. Then, it happened. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late June. I was in the middle of a quarterly review when my phone started buzzing uncontrollably. I ignored it until lunch. When I checked it, I had 17 emails from my credit card company. 17. Luxury Maritime Experiences, $15,345. Sunset Gourmet Catering, $3,270. Serenity Spa Services, $2,578. Coastal Airways, $6,842. Elite Island Excursions, $1,988. Smaller charges trickled in too: upscale boutiques, snorkel rentals, champagne service. Over $32,000. Charged to my card. All within the same hour. I called the card company immediately, ready to report fraud. But it wasn't that simple. These were authorized through your travel wallet app, the rep explained. Initiated by Brian Wilson. My father. I froze. Who's on the ticket list? I asked, voice brittle. 12 names. My parents. My 3 siblings and their partners. Plus Aunt Carol and Uncle Mike. And the Johnsons, my parents' best friends. Not me. They had planned a luxury family vacation. A 7-day yacht charter around the Florida Keys. A private chef. Spa packages. Fishing excursions. Snorkeling. Sunset cruises. All of it. And they had charged it to my credit card without telling me. I logged into the wallet app. There it was, Summer Escape 2023. I saw the itinerary. The receipts. Even a group photo from last year's vacation. Edited. I had been cropped out. That night, I didn't confront anyone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I poured a glass of whiskey, sat in silence, and planned. If they wanted to play games, they were about to lose. I called the credit card company again, this time a fraud specialist. Dispute all charges, I said. These were unauthorized. They froze the account. Issued a new card. I also revoked all access to the shared wallet. Deleted backup cards. Changed all my passwords. Then I waited. They had no idea yet. But when they got to the yacht and tried to check in, they'd find out. The sun rose slowly over the marina in Key West. Birds chirped, waves lapped gently against the docked vessels, and a sense of calm hung over the harbor, until my family arrived at the pier. I wasn't there, of course. But I had a very clear image of it in my mind. My mother, in her oversized sun hat and breezy linen pants. My father, confidently leading the group with the printed itinerary in hand. Lauren and Derek snapping selfies. Ashley holding a mimosa in one hand, rolling her pink suitcase with the other. Jason and Megan probably lagging behind, distracted by some influencer's TikTok. And then, confusion. The yacht wasn't ready. In fact, there was no reservation. The concierge checked, double-checked, and then made a call. By the time my father started raising his voice, the concierge calmly explained, "The credit card tied to this booking has been cancelled, sir. And the client of record has flagged these as unauthorized charges. We're going to need you to step aside." Cue the meltdown. I imagined their bewildered expressions as they realized the boat was no longer theirs for the week. The stunned silence as they processed what that meant. And then the phones came out. I had already blocked their numbers. But I had left one line of communication open, a private email address I hadn't used in years, the one still linked to the family's travel wallet. Within 20 minutes, a flood of messages filled my inbox. From Dad, "Heather, what have you done? You're embarrassing all of us." From Mom, "You've made your point. Now fix this." From Lauren, "Really mature, Heather. Everyone's humiliated." From Jason, "We're stranded, dude. This isn't funny." From Ashley, "How could you? After everything Mom and Dad did for you?" That line nearly made me spit out my coffee. After everything they did for me? No apology. No recognition of what they had done. Just outrage that their plan had failed. I let them stew. By nightfall, I received the first sincere message. Well, almost sincere. From Dad, "Look, I'm sorry this got out of hand. But we thought you'd be fine with it. You always say money's not an issue. We just wanted one perfect vacation together." There it was. The gaslighting. The twist. "You should have been okay with the theft because you make more." I didn't respond. Instead, I started drafting an email, not to my family, but to my lawyer. I wanted to know my rights. Could I press charges? Could I reclaim funds if this happened again? Could I legally sever any financial connections? While I waited on her reply, I cleaned house. Every shared account. Every backup payment method. Every streaming service, delivery app, or travel site still tied to my name, gone. Passwords changed. Subscriptions cancelled. Then I took it a step further. I reviewed our old family expense records, noting how much I had contributed to past vacations, gifts, holidays. I tallied it up, over $68,000 in 5 years. I wasn't bitter about the money I'd willingly given. I was bitter about the lie they built on top of it. That weekend, I booked myself a solo trip to Tuscany. Vineyard tours. Spa days. Cooking classes. And not a single Wilson in sight. Meanwhile, their Florida plans collapsed. The yacht company blacklisted them. The travel insurance refused to reimburse the charges. The resort they'd planned to stay at for the second half of their trip wouldn't honor the booking without the original cardholder. They returned home, tanned, tired, and furious. I expected another round of guilt-laced messages. Instead, I got silence. 4 weeks. Then, one Sunday evening, my mother called from a new number. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, "Heather, we need to talk. Not about the trip. About the house." I frowned. The house? Their house, the one I grew up in, had technically been in my name for the past 3 years. After my parents nearly lost it during the 2020 recession, I'd bought it under my LLC to help them avoid foreclosure. It had seemed like the right thing at the time. They would rent from me at a drastically reduced rate. I had signed the documents, paid the taxes, and kept the arrangement private. Now, apparently, they remembered. I met with my lawyer again. "Can I sell it?" I asked. She nodded. "Absolutely. You're the sole owner. But prepare yourself emotionally. This isn't just real estate to them." But wasn't that the point? They hadn't treated me like family. They'd treated me like a credit card with a pulse. So I started the process. Quietly. An inspection. Evaluation. A private listing. I gave no notice. 2 months later, I sold the house. The new owners, a young couple from Ann Arbor, planned to renovate and raise their kids there. They loved the bones, the backyard, the neighborhood. My parents were served a 60-day eviction notice. The reaction was nuclear. Voicemails. Emails. Letters. From Dad, this is betrayal, plain and simple. From Mom, you've broken this family. From Lauren, you're punishing all of us for one mistake. But it wasn't one mistake. It was a lifetime of being the safety net, the backup plan, the ATM. It was a pattern of taking and taking and taking, until I finally said no. I sent one group email in response. This isn't revenge. It's reality. Actions have consequences. I offered trust, and it was broken. I offered help, and it was exploited. I'm not responsible for your comfort at the expense of my peace. This isn't about money. It's about respect. And I'm done begging for it. I blocked them all. The day they moved out, I didn't drive by. I didn't send a message. I sat on my patio in Chicago with a glass of red wine, listening to Nina Simone and watching the city lights flicker on. The next chapter of my life had begun. And I wasn't taking anyone with me who had proven they never valued the ride. Part 4. I didn't expect silence to last forever. 3 weeks after the eviction notice had been served and the house sold, my sister Lauren reached out again. This time, the tone was different, calmer, less accusatory. She didn't open with outrage or guilt. She simply wrote, "Heather, I understand now. If you're willing to talk, I'd like to come to Chicago." Just me. I didn't reply right away. I sat with her message for a few days, weighing my emotions. The anger wasn't gone, but it had simmered down into something more manageable, a dull ache with sharp edges. Eventually, I said yes. A single Saturday. One afternoon. Public place. Lauren arrived in Chicago looking thinner, more subdued than usual. She wore no makeup, dressed simply, and carried only a small shoulder bag. We met at a quiet cafe near Lincoln Park. She ordered chamomile tea, I stuck with coffee. For the first 10 minutes, neither of us spoke. We just sat with the discomfort, letting it settle like dust. Finally, she said, "I don't expect you to forgive us." I looked at her, waiting. "I'm not here to defend what we did," she continued. "I just need you to know I've been thinking about it a lot. And I was wrong. We were all wrong." That broke something in me, not in a painful way, but in a releasing one. The wall I had built didn't come down, but I cracked open the door just enough to hear her out. Lauren explained what happened after the Florida disaster. The screaming matches. The blame game. The panic when they realized I had sold the house. My parents were, according to her, still furious but more ashamed than anything. They hadn't moved into a new home yet. They were staying with Ashley, arguing daily. She admitted that she and Derek had used some of the unauthorized funds for furniture shopping and private yoga classes, stupid things, she said. But she also said she had repaid her portion. I know it doesn't fix everything. But it's a start. She pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. I didn't open it. "I'm not trying to buy your forgiveness," she said. I miss my sister." Tears welled in my eyes, but I blinked them away. "I miss her too," I said softly. "But I don't miss being used." Lauren nodded. "Neither do I. I think we've all had to face the truth. Mom and Dad leaned on you too hard. We all did. And we got comfortable, Too comfortable, with you fixing everything. I didn't respond. I was still absorbing. But there's more, she added, almost reluctantly. Mom's boutique is failing. She hasn't told you because she doesn't want to look weak. And Dad's pension isn't what they thought it would be. They were banking on you, literally. That yacht trip wasn't just about the vacation. It was their version of feeling successful, for once. But they didn't earn it. They stole it. That honesty cut deeper than any lie. We left the cafe without resolving anything concrete, but I appreciated her vulnerability. She didn't ask me for money. She didn't ask me to mediate. She just acknowledged the pain, and for the first time, didn't try to twist it into something convenient. That night, I sat at my window looking over the city skyline and thought about family. Not the glossy version people post about online, but the messy truth. The manipulation. The guilt. The power dynamics no one talks about. The next day, Jason messaged me. Lauren said you met. I know I messed up too. Can I call you? I ignored it. The week after, a letter arrived in the mail. Handwritten. From my mother. _Heather. You've made your point. But families aren't supposed to do this to each other. You had no right to sell our house. That was our home. You've humiliated us. I don't know how you sleep at night, _. I folded it back up and set it aside. No apology. No introspection. Just blame. So I wrote back. _Mom. Families also aren't supposed to lie, steal, exclude, or gaslight. You didn't just plan a vacation without me, you planned to charge it to my card, erase me from the planning, and then lied about it. You gambled on my silence. And lost, _. A week later, I received another note. From Dad this time. I still don't agree with what you did, Heather. But we've been forced to think hard about how we got here. I know we let our pride get in the way. And I know we pushed you too far. If we ever rebuild, it'll be on your terms. That was the first thing he'd ever said that felt honest. Fall rolled into winter. Thanksgiving passed. No invitation came. Christmas approached. No pressure. No manipulative guilt. Just silence, this time, respectful. I spent the holidays in Vermont with friends. Skiing. Reading by a fire. For once, not feeling like I was responsible for anyone's happiness but my own. In January, I received a final letter from Lauren. I'm hosting a dinner in February. Just siblings. No partners. No parents. I know it's a big ask. But maybe we can start again, just us. I haven't decided yet. Part of me wants to forget them all and move on. But another part, the wounded part, still wants closure, still wants a family that knows how to choose love over leverage. So I'm sitting with it. Because this time, I don't owe anyone an answer. And that, in itself, is its own kind of peace. Part 5. February arrived with snow flurries and a chill in the air, but Lauren's invitation stayed on my mind like a whisper I couldn't ignore. I hadn't responded, not yet. I was still uncertain whether seeing my siblings without the looming presence of our parents would be healing or just another performance. Still, something about the simplicity of her words, just siblings. No partners. No parents, lingered. On a rainy Friday night, I found myself rereading our old group texts from years ago. Messages about birthdays, silly memes, vacation plans. Back when we were a unit. Before everything fractured under the weight of expectation, entitlement, and betrayal. Maybe, I thought, this dinner could be a way to acknowledge that rupture instead of pretending it never happened. I sent a short text to Lauren, I'll come. Her reply was immediate, thank you. You won't regret it. The dinner was scheduled for a Saturday evening in her apartment, neutral territory, no emotional baggage attached. When I arrived, I was greeted by soft music, the scent of baked lasagna, and an atmosphere that was more anxious than festive. Jason was already there, hovering near the kitchen island, nervously rearranging forks. Ashley arrived minutes later, carrying a bottle of wine and looking like she'd aged a year since I last saw her. We gathered at the table. It felt surreal. Just the four of us, without the dominant voices of our parents shaping the mood. There were awkward silences, forced smiles, but eventually, the conversation found its rhythm. We talked about work, weather, and news, the safe things, until Jason finally broke the spell. I owe you an apology, he said, setting down his glass. I knew what we were doing was wrong. I didn't fight it. I went along with it because, well, I was used to going along with whatever Dad said. But it was wrong. And I'm sorry. I looked at him, really looked. His eyes were sincere. Regret was written all over his face, but more importantly, so was discomfort. The discomfort of someone who had finally seen their own reflection and didn't like what they saw. Ashley followed. Same. I was part of it too. I let Mom convince me that you'd understand, that you'd be okay with it in the end. I didn't want to believe it was stealing. But it was. And I've felt horrible since. I nodded, letting the words sit. I didn't rush to forgive. That wasn't what this was about. Lauren kept quiet until dessert, slices of store-bought cheesecake arranged on real plates. I talked to Mom and Dad, she said softly. They still don't get it. Not really. They think this whole thing is about you punishing them. But I told them it's about boundaries. Respect. That maybe, just maybe, they raised a daughter who knew how to say no, and that wasn't a failure. That hit me hard. I'm not asking for things to go back to how they were, she continued. Because how they were wasn't fair to you. But I do hope we can build something new. Something better. I didn't know what to say. So I just nodded again. We spent another hour together, talking more openly than we had in years. When I left, there were no grand declarations, no promises of perfect futures, just a quiet understanding that rebuilding would take time, if it happened at all. In the weeks that followed, things were quiet. Lauren sent occasional check-ins. Jason texted me about a new job opportunity he was considering. Ashley sent a photo of a book she thought I'd like. They weren't trying to force anything. Just being present, in small, steady ways. Then came an unexpected email from a lawyer. One representing my parents. Dear Ms. Wilson. I am writing on behalf of Brian and Amanda Wilson regarding their belief that they were unlawfully removed from their residence and deprived of their equity interest. They seek to initiate a formal conversation regarding potential restitution or compensation from the sale of the property. I read the message 3 times. Restitution? Equity interest? I forwarded the email to my attorney, Rachel. We'd spoken before about the potential for fallout from the house sale, but neither of us thought it would come through legal channels. They don't have a leg to stand on, Rachel said during our call. You purchased the house. You paid the mortgage. Their names were never on the deed. The only thing they're entitled to is an honest look in the mirror. Despite her assurance, the letter shook me. It wasn't just about the money, it never really had been. It was about control. About my parents' inability to see me as separate, as someone they couldn't manipulate. This legal threat was just their latest attempt to reassert power. I debated whether to respond directly. Part of me wanted to confront them, to say, "How dare you?" Another part wanted to let Rachel handle it coldly and clinically. I chose the latter. Rachel sent a formal response, outlining the facts of the property sale, including documentation of the original purchase, my sole ownership, and proof that they had never contributed financially. She ended with a simple line, "Any further claims will be considered harassment and handled accordingly." After that, the silence returned. A heavy, final silence. It was over. I expected to feel triumphant, vindicated. But instead, I felt tired. Tired of carrying the emotional weight of a family that had never truly seen me. Tired of defending my choices to people who only saw my value when it served them. So I turned inward. I took time off work. Traveled. Went on a solo retreat in Colorado where I hiked, journaled, and sat with my grief. Because that's what it was, in the end, grief. Not just for the betrayal, but for the illusion I had clung to for so long. The illusion of family unity. Of unconditional love. When I returned, I made changes. Cut back my work hours. Started volunteering at a financial literacy nonprofit. Took up pottery. Not because I needed a distraction, but because I was finally living for myself. 6 months later, Lauren texted me a photo. Jason and Ashley at a picnic. No parents. No drama. Just siblings. We're getting together next weekend. No pressure. Just wanted you to know. I stared at the message for a while. Then replied, "I'll be there." Because healing isn't linear. And family isn't all or nothing. Sometimes it's about finding the pieces that are worth saving. And building something new from the ground up. Spring arrived in a slow bloom, bringing with it warm winds and longer days, but inside me, the thaw was slower. The fallout from the legal letter lingered in my mind, a bruised reminder of just how far my parents were willing to go to reclaim control. Their silence since Rachel's response had been deafening, not a single call, email, or letter. And yet, I knew them well enough to understand that silence didn't mean surrender. It meant plotting. It meant simmering resentment. So I continued building my own peace. I threw myself into work again, not as a distraction, but as a choice. The structure, the spreadsheets, the logic of financial planning, it gave me comfort. But I didn't let it consume me this time. I carved out space for morning walks, new recipes, pottery classes every other Thursday. It was a subtle, daily resistance against the version of me they had always wanted, ever giving, ever available, ever rescuing. One afternoon, while clearing out my old email folders, I found an unsent draft addressed to my parents. I had written it just days after discovering the yacht charges. It was angry, raw, laced with sarcasm and heartbreak. I hovered over the delete button, then saved it again. Not because I intended to send it, but because it reminded me how far I had come. About a month after the legal incident, Lauren invited me to an event hosted by her company, some networking mixer at a downtown gallery. No pressure, she wrote. Just thought it might be nice to be in the same space again. I decided to go. Not because I was ready to pretend everything was normal, but because I was ready to see what new normal might feel like. The gallery was crowded, filled with the buzz of small talk and the clinking of glasses. Lauren greeted me with a hug that felt different this time, genuine, not performative. She introduced me to a few of her colleagues, made sure I was comfortable, then gave me space. Later in the evening, we found ourselves standing near a sculpture installation, abstract steel shapes that twisted upward like vines reaching for the sky. I read a book recently, she said, sipping wine. It said that forgiveness is less about forgetting and more about deciding what you're willing to carry forward. That sounds like something a therapist would say, I replied. She laughed. It was. We stood in companionable silence for a while. No pressure. No big conversation. Just a moment of shared presence. It was enough. A few weeks after that, I received a letter in the mail. Handwritten. From my mother. Heather. We've had time to think. And I want you to know that I never intended to hurt you. That doesn't excuse what happened. I see that now. Your father and I have spent our lives making decisions from fear. Fear of not having enough. Fear of losing control. Maybe fear of watching our children surpass us. I wish I had been strong enough to celebrate you instead of quietly resenting you. What we did was wrong. And while I don't expect forgiveness, I hope someday we can talk. Even if it's just once. Love, Mom. I read the letter twice. Then once more the next morning. There was no grand apology. No promises. But there was honesty. For the first time in a long time, I felt like my mother had spoken without a script. I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed more time. But I folded the letter and placed it in my desk drawer. A seed, maybe. Nothing more. Around the same time, Jason called me. Not a text. Not a meme. An actual call. Hey, he said, awkward as ever. So I got the job. I blinked. The consulting firm? Yep. I start next month. I wouldn't have even applied if you hadn't pushed me to think bigger. That's all you, I said. You did the work. He paused. Still, thank you. I mean it. It was a short conversation, but afterward, I found myself smiling. Genuine pride. Not in what he accomplished, but in the fact that he'd chosen to share it with me. By early summer, our sibling group thread had been resurrected. Not the old one, tainted by betrayal and coded language, but a new thread Lauren started. She named it, Real Ones Only. We shared photos from our daily lives. Dog pics, coffee fails, Jason's attempt at sourdough. There were no grand plans, no vacation talks. Just small moments of connection, rebuilt brick by brick. Then one Sunday, Lauren floated an idea. What if we did a weekend cabin trip? Just us three. Low budget. Just like old times. I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't an olive branch. It was a test. An invitation to see if we could be something new together. I replied, only if no one touches my credit card. Jason replied with a crying laugh emoji. Lauren sent a heart. We booked a modest Airbnb near a lake just outside the city. 2 bedrooms, a fire pit, walking trails. Nothing extravagant. No spa treatments. No secret agendas. And it was good. We cooked meals together. We played cards. We talked late into the night about things that mattered, and some things that didn't. There were moments where the shadow of what had happened threatened to creep in, but we kept the air clear. No guilt. No manipulation. Just presence. On the last night, we sat by the fire, wrapped in blankets, sipping cocoa. I never thought we'd get back here, Jason said. We didn't, I replied. We got somewhere else. Lauren nodded. And maybe that's better. I didn't disagree. The old family dynamics may never be restored. And honestly, I no longer wanted them to be. That version of us was built on unequal foundations. This new one? It was still under construction. But the tools were honest. The blueprints, transparent. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had siblings again. Not people who took from me. People who chose me. Summer deepened its grip on the city, long humid days stretching into golden evenings. The world outside pulsed with life, but inside, I was steady. Grounded. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for the next shoe to drop. I wasn't worried about the next request, manipulation, or carefully worded guilt trip from my family. Instead, I was building something of my own, a rhythm, a life that didn't pivot on their approval. The weekend lake trip had shifted something. It hadn't solved everything, but it had softened edges, opened space where possibility could live again. There were still cracks, years of betrayal don't mend overnight, but there was effort now. Intentionality. And that mattered more than empty apologies. Back in the city, I continued to strengthen my boundaries. I unsubscribed from the group chat when conversations veered into financial territory. I politely declined when my father casually floated a group investment opportunity. I said no, clearly and without elaboration, when my mother dropped hints about how nice it would be if I could help upgrade their kitchen. No became a muscle. And the more I used it, the stronger I felt. One afternoon in mid-July, I got a text from Lauren. Are you free this weekend? There's something I'd like to show you. Curious, I agreed to meet her at a cafe in the city center. She arrived carrying a slim binder and a hopeful smile. I've been working on something, she said, sliding the binder across the table. It was a business plan. Detailed, researched, and well-formatted. She wanted to start a small event planning company with a niche in sustainable weddings and corporate retreats. I know what you're thinking, she said quickly, but this isn't a pitch for money. I'm not asking for a cent. I respect how you think. And I'd love your feedback. I flipped through the binder, impressed by the thoroughness. The budget breakdowns. The projected timeline. This wasn't a fantasy, it was a plan. It's solid, I said honestly. Have you talked to any venues or vendors yet? She smiled. 3. And they're open to pilot events in the fall. In that moment, I saw her differently. Not as the older sister who had once co-signed a lie to defraud me, but as a woman reclaiming her own sense of agency. Not perfect. But trying. We talked for hours, refining details, brainstorming potential clients. When we parted, she didn't ask for anything more than my thoughts. And for the first time in years, I gave freely, not money, not a solution. Just support. On my own terms. The next shift came from Jason. He invited me to his new apartment for a housewarming. It was modest, one bedroom, IKEA furniture, and a few framed movie posters, but it was his. No parental cosigns. No quiet financial boosts from me. During the small gathering, he pulled me aside. I found that spreadsheet you made, he said. The one tracking all the charges and expenses from the last few years. I stiffened. I went through it. Every line. I didn't realize how much we took from you. I mean, I knew about the big stuff, the yacht, obviously, but seeing it all there, black and white. He trailed off, then looked me in the eye. I'm embarrassed. And I'm sorry. I can't repay what I took, not yet. But I will. Even if it takes me 10 years. I didn't say anything. I just hugged him. That weekend, I updated my will. I removed all shared beneficiary clauses that had included my parents. I consulted with a financial advisor to set up safeguards around my accounts. I also began donating a portion of my annual bonuses to women's shelters and financial literacy nonprofits. If I had once been their lifeline, I would now be my own. And I would extend that help to people who truly needed it, with boundaries, intention, and consent. A few weeks later, I received another letter. This one from my father. Heather. I've started therapy. It's a sentence I never thought I'd write, let alone act on. But here we are. I didn't understand what I was doing to you. I thought providing emotionally was enough. That I could show love in my way, and the rest would sort itself out. But I see now that I treated your success like a resource, not a gift. And when you stopped giving, I panicked. I don't expect anything from you. Just wanted you to know I'm trying. Whether we rebuild or not, I want to be a better man. Love, Dad. I cried when I read it. Not because it erased what he did, but because it showed he was starting to own it. The next time the family met was at my mother's birthday dinner. We gathered at a cozy restaurant. No lavish venue. No unspoken expectation that I'd foot the bill. Everyone paid their share. During dessert, my mother raised her glass. To Heather, she said. Thank you for pushing us to grow up, even if we didn't want to. It was imperfect. But it was real. That night, as I walked home under a canopy of city lights, I realized something. This wasn't about revenge. It was about realignment. About refusing to be the emotional or financial keystone that held up a broken system. About choosing self-respect over silent resentment. And in doing so, creating room for something better to grow. The summer waned, but the transformation in my life remained vivid, etched into every decision I made. August's breeze carried a different weight now, not the tension of obligation, but the soft exhale of self-ownership. My apartment felt more like home than it ever had. There were no more passive-aggressive texts waiting in the morning. No group messages pretending everything was fine. Just silence, or better yet, meaningful, intentional conversations with those who had chosen to do the work. I had begun writing in the early mornings before work. Not a memoir, exactly, but a collection of reflections, lessons on boundaries, forgiveness, and the cost of being the family's financial backbone. My therapist, Dr. Chin, encouraged the practice, saying that storytelling could be a form of reclamation. And it was. For once, I was telling the story from the center, not as the helper or the fixer, but as myself. One of the entries I kept returning to began, when they called me selfish, what they really meant was, you stopped letting us take from you without consequence. It stuck with me. The idea that my refusal to continue enabling them was what had fractured our family. But in truth, the fracture had been there for years, I just finally stopped patching it with my silence. In early September, I received a surprising email from Ashley. Short. Direct. Can we talk? Coffee? No ask, just a conversation. We met at a quiet cafe halfway between our neighborhoods. She arrived nervous, clutching her mug like a lifeline. I wanted to say sorry, she began. But I know that's not enough. I let her talk. No interruptions. Just listened as she admitted how complicit she had been in normalizing the financial exploitation. We thought it was fine because you never said anything. That's not an excuse, that's how we justified it. There was a long pause before she added, you changed the rules, and I hated you for it. But you were right. I didn't offer immediate forgiveness. I didn't pretend we were fine. But I did thank her for the honesty. And when we stood to leave, she hugged me. Whatever this looks like in the future, she said, I'll earn it. That conversation marked something important. A shift in how my family showed up. It wasn't dramatic. No grand gestures. Just effort. They showed up not for what I could offer, but who I was. And that made all the difference. Lauren's monthly payments continued. She even started sharing updates, not just the money, but her wins and losses with the business. One night she called just to say she'd landed her first big corporate event. I did it, she whispered through tears. And I didn't need anyone's money to get there. Jason's efforts came in quieter ways. He started including me in small parts of his life. Inviting me to bar trivia. Texting me jokes. Asking about my week without any ulterior motive. One Sunday, he dropped off a homemade lasagna. Thought you could use a break, he said. It was a small gesture. But it meant the world. My parents remained cautious. Careful. But consistent. My father sent books he thought I'd like. My mother mailed handwritten cards on ordinary days, no money requests, no strings attached. Sometimes just a line or two, "Hope today is kind to you." In therapy, we talked about the difference between forgiveness and access. That just because someone apologized didn't mean they earned a place in your daily life. Forgiveness was internal. Access was earned. So I created my own rules. I accepted invitations, but I didn't stay too long. I contributed to conversations, but not to finances. And slowly, the dynamic shifted from transactional to relational. I also started mentoring at a local women's financial empowerment group. Once a month, I'd sit with women who had survived financial abuse and help them understand their credit reports, balance budgets, and reclaim financial independence. It gave my pain a purpose. And reminded me that I wasn't alone. As autumn painted the city in gold and rust, I decided to visit the house, the one I'd sold months earlier. I drove by quietly, expecting to feel regret or maybe loss. But instead, I felt nothing but closure. A young couple now lived there. There were toys in the yard. A wreath on the door. It was someone else's dream now. And that was okay. I left a note in their mailbox. "Wishing you laughter, love, and new memories in this home. It was once the site of endings. May it now be the place of beautiful beginnings." On Thanksgiving, I attended a smaller gathering hosted by Lauren. Just her, Jason, Ashley, and me. Our parents were at a retreat, giving space after a tough year. The table was modest, the food mostly homemade, and the laughter real. During dessert, Lauren raised a toast. To accountability, she said. To growing up. To not getting it right the first time, but not giving up. I looked around at the faces of the people who had once hurt me, and who were now working to love me better. The scars weren't gone. But they didn't define us anymore. After dinner, as we washed dishes shoulder to shoulder, Jason said quietly, "You were the first to say no. And because you did, everything started changing. Thank you." It wasn't the dramatic ending of a story. There was no perfect bow, no sudden redemption arc. But it was honest. And healing. And real. I didn't need my family to be perfect. I just needed them to choose better. And they were trying. And as I looked out the window, watching leaves fall under the street lamp's glow, I realized something profound. I hadn't just reclaimed my finances. I had reclaimed my voice. My time. My worth. And for the first time in a long time, I was free.